Hi, everybody. It's Sam Bennett from theorganizedartistcompany.com here with my head coach, team leader, right hand, bestie, Leonore Chia. Hi, Leonore.
Hello. So nice to be here.
And so many people signed up for this call, Leonore. I can't believe we have never offered this before because people are all over this, like white on rice, like just like, oh my God, this is so me. I've got to be there right now. So I'm really glad to do this.
Me too. Happy to be here.
Let's start with our breathing, right? So y'all are here because, you know that inner critic voice, you know how it's keeping you stuck. And no matter how much spiritual work you do, you all are super evolved. This isn't your first rodeo. And yet it's still there. So, so we've got some great content for you. Before we do the breathing, actually, let me just introduce Leonore because some of you may not know her. Some of you do know her because you've been at events with me or she and I teach together all the time. But okay, I even have your official bio. Leonore Chia is a certified online business manager, and which means she knows pretty much everything there is to know about how to set up an online business. Like lead magnets and email and autoresponders and lead pages and online webinars and all that stuff. And she's been a key member of the Organized Artist Company since 2012. Really? 2012?
Isn't that scary? Yeah.
She's also a trained facilitator in internal family systems therapy. So she has actual training in how to guide you through some of the mind traps that keep you stuck. She also has been a sexual empowerment coach for the last 10 years, 6 years, something like that. So there's really nothing you can't say to her. So, and it's one of the many reasons I love Leonore, this balance of like super technical, super practical, super intelligent, but also very artistic. She's an artist, she's a writer, she's a poet, she's a musician, she plays banjo, she sings a cappella, she's written a poem a day for like the last 5 years. And then also this really deep internal work that she's done both on herself and then with others, facilitating others in the world of internal family systems and human sexuality. So that's Leonore. And I know you want her on your team too, but you can't have her. She's not. So let's, and if you don't know me, just Google me, you'll figure it out. Okay. Let's do our breathing. We've got a lot of people here now, so let's go ahead and center in. Let's remember that this time is sacred. This time is separate from other time. This is not just like, we have an opportunity for a breakthrough here. We have an opportunity for something new to happen. We have an opportunity for revelation. We have an opportunity to be made new in every moment. So go ahead and find yourself in this moment. Where are you in this moment right now? You can put your hand on your belly or your heart or your face. Just feel your skin, your body, your good, excellent body that loves you so much, right? And we're going to inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, and we'll do that 3 times. You ready? Let's inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, that feels so good. Thank you for doing that with me. Oh, I feel like I just got a massage.
So good.
So good. So yeah, we're here today to talk about your inner critic, and let's just get it out right now. Because we're going to go deep on this. We can talk theoretically about inner critic, and you guys are all smart, and you'll nod your heads and be like, oh yes, that's very insightful. But we want to have a change happen for you while you're on this call. And step one, like, where are you at? Mm-hmm. So I double dog dare all of you, type in to the Zoom chat or on the Facebook, what's the meanest thing your inner critic says to you?
Or has said in the last week, if you can't remember ever.
Or just this morning.
Yeah.
Right?
The last 15 minutes.
Yeah. Let's just air the shame. Let's just get the monsters out from under the bed. My inner critic likes to say, there's a little bit of a tone to it, and I think I have to do my glasses. My inner critic likes to say, you're pathetic. You're pathetic. And it's like, speaking especially to that part of me, that like 7th grader who really wants to be loved, that like, hey, you guys, want to be friends? Hey, want to come on this call with me? Hey, want to do something? And like, you're pathetic.
Oh, it's like the crushing disdain of the most popular girl in middle school. Like,
exactly.
Yep.
What is yours?
Totally. Okay, so for me, so it's my father. So picture the very authoritative, inscrutable face, you know, and it's just, I prepared this whole thing. It's like 99% perfect, and I've slaved over it, and it's like the 1%. It just immediately goes to the 1%, and you know, it would be really nice if you'd pay more attention to that. It just really ruins the whole thing.
Oh God, it's like an icicle in your heart.
Totally. It's like all my worth disappears, you know? Yeah, totally. Okay, so Deborah Servini says, you're all talk. You'll never actually complete any of the things you're working on. And even if you do, nothing will come of it. And the book that you published years ago was a fluke. Ooh, that's good. I love it. Great manipulation of the story. Angela says, this morning my inner critic has said, how dare you sleep in? You've got so much to do. Don't be so lazy.
Elisa says, not good enough, not pretty enough. My thoughts are not original. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Karen says, you're a fraud, you're undisciplined, and you're a dilettante.
Ooh,
your inner critic has a great vocabulary.
Right? Dilettante. What a great word. Catherine, you've totally screwed that up. Yeah, 100%. You've just totally screwed it up. You've ruined everything. You have no idea what you're talking about. Eric says, no one will want to hear your voice. Your podcast will grow, then it will flop. Downloads will just flatline to 0. Wow. Okay, let's see. I'm just looking on Facebook to see if there's anybody there. Okay, good. Yeah, you're not worthy. You don't deserve this. Too lazy and a fraud. Nobody will read your book or buy Coach. Has your mom's voice. Yeah. You're worthless. You're lazy.
Oh my God, I can't keep up with the chat.
I know.
All your best efforts are delusional. No matter what you do, you'll truly be wasting your time. Oh, I know, because I'll be the one efforts many years down the road. I'll be smiling and ready to tell you one more time. It didn't work out, did it?
Crystal says the project's too big. It's too big, right? To me, that's a version of who do you think you are? Like, you can't do that. It's too big. Yeah, Leanne, you're not worthy. Why can't you just get your shit together? Oh, Kate's nailing it. Why are you risking all the security you have to try and make it as an entrepreneur? All based on you and your skills alone? Really? Oh my God, I love doing this voice. Really? Do you think you can do that? Really?
Right, so I have all of these. I love this. This is very soothing. Can I just say this is very soothing because I have all of these. You know, it's great. Oh, and the body stuff. Your body is ugly and unlovable. Hide it and apologize for it.
Oh,
so deep.
And I have just, because I turned 50 this year, and all of a sudden, I am old and invisible.
No one sees you.
No one sees me. No one flirts with me. I got interviewed by a podcaster the other day. He's got a millennials podcast, and he's 28. And his first question for me was, great, so I'm really glad you're here. So when you were younger, did you really
take me out of the bath and put me down already?
I mean, every day prior to today, all those days that I was younger than I am right now? Yeah. Okay, so really, okay, notice like the joy and the relief that comes from just voicing that inner critic, right? Catherine says, try being on the verge of 60, you'll be so much better. I know, right?
Mm.
And notice the similarities, right? Notice the similarities. This is something I think I got from Elizabeth Gilbert. She did in a Facebook post one time where she was like, notice how the critical voice in your head is unoriginal, is boring, is trite, is tedious, is unworthy of attention, while your original thoughts, your creative ideas, your projects are totally original, right? But somehow we give all this weight to the inner critic that says, who do you think you are? You're lazy, you're stupid, you can't do that. And no weight at all to the little voice that says, I have an idea. This could be fun. Let's try this. Maybe you would like this, right? Mara says it helps so much to be seeing this in perspective. Thank you too for laughing. Yes. Yes. Good. So, Leonor, what is the problem? Why are we like this? Where does this come
Why
from?
are we like this?
Why are we like this? Solve our lives for us, will you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through this amazing Russian novel of our inner dialogue here and seeing some common themes, most of which revolve around core issues like laziness, not doing enough, not going to succeed, doing things wrong, being unlovable, and being unworthy, which when you really drill down to it are all like core issues that we experience in childhood, normally reinforced by relationships in which we have big power imbalances, like with our parents or with, I mean, all relationships in childhood have roots in deep power imbalances. And what happens is we take that on, we experience the shame and the humiliation, you know, and at these young, vulnerable stages, and that burden comes in, and then it's so painful, you know, I'm sure you have this too, like childhood humiliations of the simplest thing that now when you think back of it, you go, oh, that's so silly. That was nothing. And yet there is a part of you that just actually still cringes and like wants to die, you know, that it's so bad that it's still there, you know, and it's like it's locked away in a little room somewhere. Do you know what I mean, Sam?
I do. And it's like you've taken something that happened once, right? A teacher said something demeaning to you, another kid, your parent, your sibling, somebody, some stranger. My little sister got this very cute haircut in 1977. She got this little cute Florence Henderson jag, and somebody on the bus referred to her as a little boy. And like, that was it. Like she spent the next, she's probably still worried about it. Like, it messed with her head in this very deep way that like somehow she wasn't feminine, she wasn't girly, she wasn't worthy, she wasn't lovable, she wasn't pretty. Like she just made it mean all these things. And so we take something that happened one time or a couple of times and we make it a permanent condition. We make it something that's always about us.
Exactly. And it's because that part of us actually sort of gets trapped in time. Like it gets put in this little room where that experience is always happening because it's so painful that in order to not be overwhelmed by it and like go on and continue to like be in our family and be in school and be in life, we have to like move on and pretend that doesn't bother us. So it gets exiled in this way. It gets disowned of like, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to deal with that. And that's where these protective parts come in, the inner critic, that are sort of standing guard outside that room and telling you what you need to do to not feel that pain again.
And
Does that make sense?
It does. And this is where I think this gets really interesting because some of you may remember that traumatic experience. You may be able to identify really easily. Somebody who said like, oh, it's my mom's voice. You know, Leonor even shared her dad's voice. Some of you may know what the source is. But for some of us, we don't always hear the inner critic. We just see the behavior. We see the symptoms, right? So we see the perfectionism. Well, I can't start until I know what it is. How do I know if this is a good idea?
And a lot of us are even in denial about our perfectionism. We don't think that we are perfectionists. We just think, no, I just like things to be done. I just like to do things well. I've been really in denial about it too, right? And it only takes until people reflect it back enough or you see how insanely driven you are and the inability to ever be satisfied with what you create. And I mean, for me, it's really taken the better part of a decade to be like, wait, maybe this isn't normal.
It might be normal, but it may not be healthy, right? So
Right.
maybe that your inner critic shows up in your behavior. It might show up in
Right.
perfectionism. It might show up in procrastination. It might show up in like a lot of getting ready to get ready syndrome. It might show up in that fog, that I don't know fog. Well, I just don't know what to do. I can't decide. I'm not sure. That fogginess can sometimes be a manifestation of the inner critic. What else?
Comparison.
Other people. Yeah, comparison, either jealousy, comparing yourself to other people, feeling jealous about other people, judging other people. All of that is inner critic in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is inner critic in disguise. And it's one of the reasons I think it's so important that we're doing this call, because I'm a little surprised. I gotta say, Leonard, when you brought this idea to me, I was like, of course, because we've really talked around it. Like I talk about procrastination, I talk about perfectionism, I talk about, identity, but we've never gone in and talked about this core, this what's really at the center of all of that behavior, which is this inner critic work. Mm-hmm. And we've all tried to deal with it, right? We've all tried to manage it. So like, what are some of the ways that we try and deal with the inner critic? Like we think that other people's approval is going to get us there. Like if enough people tell us that we're good or worthy or pretty or that our work is good, that like, that's going to help.
Yeah. It's people's entire careers being driven by that. Right? Yeah.
And I love what you wrote about how the inner critic's reaction to the approval. That when people are like, oh, you're so beautiful, your work is so great, oh, you're so wonderful. And what does your inner critic say?
Oh, like, fuck you. Or like, if you only knew what it takes, It's like you can't even take in the appreciation for the hard work, because there's so much tightness inside that it might be like, oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad that touched you. And inside it's like, you don't even know.
Or they don't mean it. They don't mean it. They're just being nice. They don't really mean it. They don't see all the flaws. They must be stupid because they don't see the flaws, that part that's not perfect. They don't see that. And then the beating yourself up about beating yourself up. Like, why can't I accept these compliments? What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me?
And I'm still so questioning, like, that I've done this work and people have liked it and I still can't believe it. Like, what's criticizing yourself for criticizing yourself, right? And I don't know that the personal development world has helped all that much, because there's a lot of sort of yelling going on. I remember seeing a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, giving a talk one time to a room full of people, and she's striding back and forth across the stage saying, you just need to eliminate fear. You just need to eliminate your inner critic. Just make it go away. I'm like, that would be so great if that worked, if we just go, oh, I'm just not going to be like that anymore.
Right. Totally. I think that's such an interesting point, that the way that we're trying to deal with the inner critic, when we become aware of it, so often is from the inner critic of, I shouldn't feel this way. This should be over. I should have resolved this. Or I should know better, which is inherently coming from your critical parts. You see the irony here?
Right. I get perfectionistic about my perfectionism.
And I think you're right that a lot of the personal development world hasn't helped, because the thing is, these tracks are so deeply ingrained in us neurologically that so often what we take in through the lens of spiritual growth or personal development actually just becomes fuel for that voice that says, I'm not good enough. And that's because ego can co-opt anything for its use, including the language of spirituality and personal evolution.
Oh, I love this. Catherine says, you can only succeed if it's been hard, right? Like it has to be hard. Why can't? Yeah. And that's something I've thought about a lot, because I've noticed that the things that I've done that have been most successful have been the things that are easiest for me. The things that I almost don't even pay any attention to. I'm like, oh, really? That? Oh, did I do that? I guess I did that. Sure. Like, and everybody's freaking out with joy. And I'm like, oh, that was simple. Interesting. But you're right. And we tend to not give ourselves credit for the things that are easy, when in fact, the things that are easy for you to do, that's your gift. That's your sacred designation. That's your talent, man. You know, like, it should feel easy and joyful. And the fact that, like, no, you only get credit for when it's hard. You know, I got, you know, I did like sort of middling well in school. I did really well in the subject I was interested in, and not at all well in the subjects I was not interested in or couldn't do, like math and languages. And so I'd always get crap from my family and from my teachers of like, well, of course you did well in English and drama, Samantha. Like, but what about calculus? What about third year French? And I was like, and well, then of course at the time I totally took that on and like, yes, I should work harder and I'm so stupid and what's wrong with me? But years later I was like, wait a minute, I did very well in English and drama. And for somebody who's a writer and an actor and a teacher, that's pretty good.
Totally. We have this story so much that it only counts when it's hard. You know, that it only matters when it's hard. And there's so many reasons for that. I mean, I think at that core, what that is like is how we internalize capitalism. Like, we have to work and struggle in order to feel worthy as people. And yet the way that is transmitted to us is so often just through the little messages in our family and in our friends of that it's really not okay to not struggle, you know? And then we internalize that in a way that it again, like, comes it back into this thing of I need to do this in order to be connected and in order to be loved and in order to be worthy, which is really, when you drill down to it, what's always at the bottom of this.
I like Crystal saying some of the way of dealing with it feels like an attempt at a spiritual bypass.
Totally.
I can see that's sort of spiritual whitewashing. It's all good. No, I'm just love and acceptance. It's all good. Right? Mm-hmm. What was I just thinking about this? You know, so we treat this inner critic like it's got to be vanquished or overcome. We criticize ourselves for having it to begin with. And we think it's like something separate from us that we need to get rid of. Mm-hmm. Steffi says, wow, I've always believed I couldn't be successful because what I wanted to do wasn't a struggle. Put a pin in that thought, Steffi, because we're gonna come back around to that. That's very good. Mm-hmm. But actually, I think what we're getting to here is the source of that inner critic voice is really the youngest and most vulnerable part of you, right? That part that just really just wants love, just wants to be cared for, just wants to feel worthy, you know, that joy that you get when you do something funny and people laugh, or you say something smart and people go, that's really interesting, you know, or somebody, that feeling of being seen. You know, we just want to feel seen and heard. And, you know, I think about the first boy I was ever in love with.
And we want that from ourselves too, you know, not only, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Sam.
No, just that being seen. I'm just thinking about, for some reason, the first boy I was ever in love with, and that, like, and how much eye contact we had. Like, that there was a lot of like, I see you, I'm looking into you, I feel you. Like, it was so amazing. I just felt like nobody had ever noticed me up until that point.
Mm-hmm. And I think we want that level of seeing and recognition with ourselves too. And for many of us as artists and creatives, our creative work becomes a road into that when we can really get lost in our creation, or like the ideas just come and we get into that dance of creating and time stops, you know. I know you know what I'm talking about. It's that it's a really deep feeling. It's such an amazing thing to experience as a person. And it's like a sense of wholeness and being with ourselves as we're creating. And so often the critical voice that comes in of like, who do you think you are to do this? Or what are other people going to think when they see you do this? Or, you know, that was really indulgent of you to spend so much time on this when you could have been working. And it's just like murder to these parts of us.
And I've seen it, and you have too. Like, I know sometimes when we're in retreat with people or we're working with people one-on-one, I've even done this on some teleclasses where, like, I'll have people, you do a little sort of guided meditation almost, where they have a conversation with their project, or they have a conversation with their creativity. And, what does your project want from you? Who do you need to be? Who does your project want you to be? What advice does your project have for you? And this little process is astonishing to me, because people do that. They get it right away. Like, oh my gosh, my project just wants me to love it. Oh, my project has been so patient with me all this time. Oh, my project just wants to be expressed. It just wants to be in the sunshine, like it's so simple and pure. And oh, my project just wants me to be brave enough to love it. Or, it's so calm and beautiful. And I have people writing it down and like really, trying to mark that moment of purity, of flow, of deep creative connection. And not 5 minutes later, they're going to be like, but nobody's going to pay for that. I can't get charged enough for that. I mean, what if it's not right? I don't really know how to do that. What if I've seen other people fail at that, like, boom. I was like, oh no, we were right there.
It's like this insane neurosis that comes in and it just takes people over. Yeah, totally seen it. And that's what you're cycling through like multiple times every day, which is part of why it's just so exhausting. I think that's a lot of why people give up too. It's just from the sheer exhaustion of the mental load that's happening here all the time.
Yeah, and we're creatures of habit too. I think you think something enough, you just feel like, oh, that must be true.
Yeah.
You just come across the same information either and we also find what we're looking for, right? So if we're thinking all the time, I'm not good enough, we're going to be finding evidence outside of ourselves that we're not good enough as well.
And we're so much more sensitive than we even give ourselves credit for, Oh, I was telling my uncle my podcast at Thanksgiving. He looked at me, moved his eyebrow this way. He thinks I'm a piece of shit. I should just give up. It's like we don't even watch our thoughts enough to see that what's triggering the insanity of, oh, I should just give up. I'm a piece of shit. They were right all along.
It's one of the worst moments of
Martin is saying something.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just remembering one of the worst moments of my life is my girlfriend was getting married and she was going to wear her mother's wedding dress, but she was going to refashion it a little bit. So she put it on, but she had described to us kind of what she was going to do to it to make it different. So she walks out into the room and I have what's known as a bad thinking face, right? She walks down the room and I sort of squint to try and imagine what it's going to look like once she's made the changes to it. And she looks at me and she's like, you hate it. You think I look fat and ugly. I'm like, no, not at all. I'm trying to imagine. No. But there was no coming back from it. I mean, she felt like I was some externalization of some judgment she already had in her head. And in some ways our friendship was never really the same after that. I have a bad thinking face. It looked like I was criticizing her. I know it looked like that.
Well, and that it touched something in her, right? That was just so strong that she couldn't get out of that, which is her own material to work with. But at least she talked about it with you. And I think so often we have these things and we just repeat it and we ruminate on it in our minds for years. And so often the other person doesn't even remember the conversation. I know I've had this too, where I really hung a shingle of like, this is what I need to do to be a good person or to be worthy on like one conversation I had with someone. And years later, it turned out they didn't even remember that conversation. And I had spent years trying to be good enough based on that hidden metric. It's really sad,
So go ahead, everybody. So if you haven't already, write down what your inner critic voice says to you and write down where it shows up for you. Like, where have you kept yourself small? Where have you kept yourself stuck? What conversations have you been obsessing about for years? What, Karen says, I give away so many of my talents for free. There was some on the Facebook page too. Feeling invisible, giving more muscle to the inner critic, right? The belief that you can't do it. So get these done on paper for yourself, because there's a lot of work that you can be doing. There's a lot of art you can be making actually about this very thing. And it's easy to sort of feel it now and feel like, oh yeah, I'll remember this, but you won't. So write it down or doodle it, make a drawing for yourself. And we're going to talk about what the transformation looks like there is, because there is a bridge out. I promise you there is a bridge out. not of everything. Like in some ways your inner critic will always, and your fear will always keep up with you no matter how spiritually evolved you get. Like it'll always show up. What do they say? New level, new devil. But you can at least be having different problems. You can at least be having newer and more exciting problems, and your resilience gets faster. You bounce back faster, right?
Yeah.
Things that used to like send me to bed for 3 weeks are now like 15 minutes of, well, that sucks, but okay. Right, fear of displeasing people. We're getting in the comments, keeping you small and keeping you from showing up as big as you know you can and as big as the world needs you to be. So we're going to talk about this transformation and how to make it happen. But it will not surprise you, we also have an opportunity for you to work with Leonore to get there. So, and what we want to invite you to do is just fill out an application to work with her. And you should fill out the application even if you're 100% certain there is no way on God's green earth you are ever going to work with her, because answering the questions is super interesting, right? So Leonore, if you put the link to the application in the chat, and I'll do it, and then I'll copy it and put it on the Facebook too. Let's see. Oh, that's where is that the link to register for this call, or is that the link to the?
No, that's the link for the application form.
Oh, fabulous. Okay. Application here. Okay, so because as you know, I don't really offer one-on-one coaching because I'm not that great at it. I mean, I'm okay. But Leonore's much better at it. And she recently had her schedule changed, so she's available to take on some. So we have a very modestly priced package for you. If you're interested in doing some of this work, you'll just fill out the application and you two will have a conversation about it. You're not buying anything right now. If it's not a good fit, obviously she doesn't want to work with you if it's not a good fit, and you don't want to work with her if it's not a good fit. So fill out the application, you'll have a conversation about it. Not anything super manipulative or salesy. Again, we want you to do it if it's right for you, and we don't want you to do it if it's not right for you.
It's true. It's true. I'm laughing at Angela's testimonials to me, I've coached her before. She says, Leonore's amazing, but she'll call you out on your shit because she sees your truth. It's true. I do it with love, and I'm gentle. I'm gentle and direct, but I really just want to call in people who really want to work with this on a deeper level and are ready to actually change their relationship to this. And I think so often what blocks us turning out is we don't actually believe that it can change. Like we're so stuck in it that it just feels immovable. So if there are parts of you that say that you don't think this can change, that actually really doubt on a deep level, like you feel something recoil in your body as I'm saying this, that's like this, it's not possible, then I really invite you to fill out this application and have a conversation with me about the parts of you that don't think that you can change. And I'd love to help you change that. I know that's possible,
Oh, that's so deep though, because you're exactly right. It's not just that it feels so monolithic and so intractable and like just it's so been our whole life story, but that deep belief that it can't really be changed. Mm-hmm. Like, look, I've got a whole wall of books, I've tried everything. Nothing's made it change. It's because you've been, I don't know, trying to hit a laser with a hammer. I don't know, like you've been using the wrong tools to try to fix it. Yeah. And it's actually not that hard to fix it. And you can really see some amazing results. I mean, just think to yourself, like what would happen if you were able to play a 10% bigger game? If you felt comfortable charging 10% more, 50% more, most of you could stand to charge 100% more. If you weren't shy to go up and talk to that person, if you felt good about going to that event or that networking thing, if you felt comfortable voicing your opinion in this group or this family event or this, what would just 5 or 10% more self-confidence or better self-esteem bring you? What might it bring you? And go ahead and write that down too. Like, what if I got this much better about managing my inner critic? What could be possible for me? What could be possible for me? Lava says, I run my ideas and thoughts and words through what I think someone else will think. Right. How time-consuming and self-destructive is that?
Right. Mm-hmm. You really hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cynthia is saying a whole amazing, brilliant career would be possible for me if I got 10% better about managing my.
I just got such a whoosh on that, like, and I want that for you. And you can have it. You can absolutely have it. I'm gonna look over on Facebook. Oh, Elise says, Leonore's work is really magical. She's been such a beautiful ally in moving these deep and tender parts within myself. It's true. Elise
Thanks,
knows.
Elise.
Karen says, the inner critic shows up in my life by living small, keeping myself small and childlike, which is really crazy because that's when this stuff started for me as a 3-year-old. Yes. Good. So you've written down what your inner critic says. You've written down how it shows up for you, procrastination, perfectionism. Some of you don't even start your projects. Some of you get halfway through and get distracted and drop them like a hot potato. Some of you get almost to the end and then quit. Some of you finish them and then put them in a drawer or a closet and nobody ever sees them. Am I right? Or you get it out a little.
Oh my God, drives us crazy.
Right? Or it gets a little, you get it out a little bit, like you send out one email and like, oh, nobody signed up for my work. I sent out one email and nobody signed up for my workshop, so therefore I must suck and I can't do it and everything's horrible. Right? So what's your inner critic saying? How is your inner critic showing up for you practically in your life? And what might be possible for you if you just were able to move that needle just a little bit? Angela says, my inner critic allows me to charge small so that I can always remain in survival mode, often when I'm just on the verge of abundance flowing. Good noticing. Angela. Right, Cynthia says, me too. Yeah, I'm really curious. What would be possible for you? A whole amazing, brilliant career. Crystal says, I have a project that when I get it out there, it's going to help so many people. We all deserve our lives to feel great. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Good. All right, so Allison says, haha, yep, I get my art out a little bit. People love it, but I don't make more. Yep. Right. So if you could fix that, if you could genuinely fix that, what would that look like for you? What would that bring to you? What would that change? Rachel says, it would give me the ability to actually help other people rather than just focusing on how shit I am all the time. Oh.
It's so true. Mm-hmm.
And her inner critic is actually criticizing her right now, saying she's rubbish for being slower than everyone else at posting this.
Oh, let's all wave to our inner critics that have just come up while we're in this webinar. Let's just all say hi. Just welcoming the inner critic, just letting them know this is a space where all parts are welcome. It's okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Deb says, I can't totally commit to something because 1, if it fails, at least I wasn't totally committed to it. And 2, if it succeeds, I'll have to be actually consumed by it. Oh, that's a perfect game, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? Perfect game. Oh my gosh. Okay, good. So let's talk about, so fill out the application, even if you're sure you don't want to work with Leonore, you don't want private coaching, you're not interested, you can't pay for it, still fill out the application. And like I said, you'll get an email back, I think, with your responses, right? Did they get their responses?
Yeah, that's right. And so you can see it all reflected back at you, which I have to say is very helpful.
It's really powerful. Even the minute you write it and then you see it coming back to you, you're like, oh my gosh, look at that. And then
so often we're just trapped in our own fucking heads about this, right? And it's like we don't even realize the depth of the neurosis because it just becomes so normal, but so often putting it down and actually just having it come back, it's like, oh, okay, it gives you a little space from it, and a little more humor with it. Crystal says, I will fill out the application. So there, inner critic.
Nice. Nice. Mm-hmm. Angela says, releasing this would allow me to heal this old inherited pattern of constant struggle, and I'd be open to saying yes to me first. I had a meditation teacher tell me one time that when we heal ourselves spiritually, we're also healing backwards generationally. That we can actually heal the wounds of the generations that have come before us. And we certainly change the generations coming after us, right? I mean, Angela, can you imagine what you would be modeling for your children? If you got out of this constant struggle and resisting your good, right, but actually demonstrated for them what it looks like when someone charges an appropriate amount for their work, right? It'd be an amazing lesson for your children, but also that ability to go back and heal generationally, I think is really cool. Angela says, damn it, Sam, you're reading these aloud. Yeah, well, you know. What's 365 Pro's self-sabotage on the
I see. So there's something I need to just change on the forms. So Sam, keep riffing while I go change that in Infusionsoft.
Okay. This is our inner critic preventing us from perfectionism, is sometimes we make mistakes.
So I just want to model for you that certified online business manager still totally makes mistakes inside Infusionsoft. It's cool. It's cool, guys. We've all been there, you know?
Deb says, it occurs to me that it's become the whole of who I am rather than a scared young little part of me who happens to be running the show at this time. Yes. And that's really what it is too, right? When your inner critic is running the show, it is like you've given a 4-year-old the keys to the Lamborghini. You know, like they're just out of control. When you do the work on your inner critic, when you experience this transformation, again, it's not that you don't still get afraid. It's not that you don't still have self-judgment. It's not that you don't still have your patterns come up. You just notice them in a totally different way. You just take the keys out of the child's hand. You're like, I see you, and you don't get to drive the car. I see you, and you don't get to make these decisions. Because as you may have noticed, your feelings make a terrible CEO. Your feelings make a terrible administrator of your life, right? It's not that your feelings don't matter. They do matter. And I want you to have feelings, and I want you to give voice to them, and I want you to give a big voice to them, but I don't want them running the show, right?
So a big part of spiritual maturity is, I love that we're easily talking about these things, about the young parts of us, the child parts, like the lost parts. A big part of spiritual maturity is, as you're saying, Sam, being able to identify that and work with it in a moment of getting that to step back and just know that it isn't running the show. But I think one thing that can't really be explained, but in a way has to be experienced, is the inner relaxation that comes when you connect with that. And it's not just batting away the inner child and saying, get out of the driver's seat. It's changing a relationship to these parts of you that, as vicious and intense and dysfunctional as they may seem at a core level, very quickly relax when you truly come to them with the energy of curiosity and compassion. And that is why there's so much value in doing this work with someone else, because you know that when you're in these thought loops, you can't unblend from them enough to experience the inner shift that makes these things so easy. And that's like the magic trick element of it. So there's something here, like, if I just want to inject some hope into all of us that feel so stuck in these patterns, and that even as we're hearing this idea about working with the parts, don't believe that it really can work. Because it's so is possible, just not in the way that you think it is.
Right.
You know, and if you have a hard time believing that, then borrow my hope, because I really know it's possible for you.
Yes. And I love what you're saying, and I really notice that, that you're right. In that moment of relaxation, compassion, love, curiosity, like, what's possible for you when you're like that? You know, when you're going through the world in a state of relaxed curiosity, compassionate interest in what's happening, like, I notice that I see other people. I notice that I see opportunities. I notice that I don't have such a big agenda. I notice that I have a better sense of humor. I notice that, I'm much more resilient. I don't take, bad news so hard. I don't take things so personally. Little things don't bother me, right? As opposed to that lockdown, you have to be perfect. Who do you think you are? And it's so funny too, because especially the ones that are really reflected in our culture, like lazy is like the worst thing you could say to someone.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And for artists that, oh, it's just ego, you know, who do you think you are? You're not really that good. You're not worthy, right? So when we have the voice of our inner critic being magnified by the voice of society, kind of, it gets so constricting. And then, I know you've had this experience where you're in that critic voice and you become blind. You become blind. Just judgmental and reactive and trapped and sad and mad and mean. It is not your highest and best self. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I want to also point out that even the way we're talking about the inner critic is still happening here, in a critical way. Like, actually, I even want to challenge you to turn the idea of your inner critic inside out, because these parts of you have so much wisdom, actually real wisdom and beauty. And in my work with people, when we go into the inner world and do this work, there's so much power there. And there's tremendous wisdom and resilience in these parts, but you don't see it when you're locked in this spiral of hating them. And so even talking about it as the inner critic in this way, I just want to like bring in the freshness of remembering that these parts are more than that. And they want to be recognized and acknowledged for their wisdom in all that they do to protect you.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, say more about that. Say more about what's your inner critic, the value of your inner critic.
So the value of the inner critic is that it's a part or parts of you that are standing guard inside around guarding these old experiences of humiliation that have been running you. So it's a protected part of you that wants you to survive. It wants you to do well in every situation. It wants you to be loved, and it wants you to remain connected. So much that it's willing to do this job of like repeating this harsh dialogue, even though other parts of you hate it and want it to go away. So it's like a sentinel standing guard, or you can think about it like a protector that's in service to you. And just when you actually think about that idea of a sworn protector inside you that's there for you, keeping you alive, even in like a misguided way because it doesn't know better, just imagine if you could offer gratitude for all the work that it does, because it's doing that. It be called horrible things that makes us call it things like my inner bitch or my inner critic or the worst part of me. And underneath that, there's a tremendous richness and vitality in these parts of you and a real power.
This is really moving me. It's like when I imagine, that little girl who got criticized or got hurt or got humiliated, and this part rising up that says, you will not hurt little Sam like that again. I'm going to stand here and make sure that she never puts herself in a position to get hurt like that again. I am on the job. Like, and that poor sentinel has been there for all these years, trying to prevent pain, trying to keep me safe, trying to keep me loved, trying to keep me connected, and in a completely disproportionate way. But it's so sweet. It's like,
exactly.
It's so, like, that's so dear. And I also, like, I can feel a certain fatigue. Like, what if I let that part take a nap?
Exactly. And that's exactly what these parts really want to do, is actually once we really check in and say, well, if you weren't doing this job, what would you want to do? Often they say, I just want to go lie in a hammock somewhere, maybe take a nap, maybe color. Like, they actually really want to relax because they've been working so hard. They've been working with all the franticness of, I have to do this for Sam, otherwise she gets humiliated again. I have to do this for Sam, otherwise she becomes that girl in 7th grade. And so much of what they want is to step back and to relax, right?
Mm-hmm. I've heard you talk too about the wisdom of your inner critic. About what your inner critic knows about what's going on.
Totally. Because so often what the inner critic is, so what we could say, just changing it to what this protector is guarding, are these young and vulnerable parts who have their own burdens. But once we get to meet them and work with them, these parts of us are the ones that contain our creativity, the magic, innocence, curiosity, playfulness, all the things that are so abundant in childhood. We think that they are childish, but it's just that we experience them most freely in childhood before these burdens get layered on, right? And that's like, when you think of people, when you think of adults who are very charismatic and who are creative and who are really, there's something special about them. Often it is because they have access to these childlike qualities, but they're representing it in an adult way. They're charismatic because they publicly accept themselves. They're really interesting to talk to because they're curious and engaged. They're playful. They bring a magic into the world. These are all things we associate with childhood, but they're not limited to childhood. It's just that so often we lose access to them in childhood, and then we think that we're never supposed to have them again. But the only way you can find your way back to it is through the inner critic, which is actually the protector who shows you the door to that.
Oh my God, I love this so much. So Renee says, Leonora, you're brilliant. I'm telling you, she's brilliant. She's available. Fill out the application and have a conversation with her about what, because you can see, like, we've been here not less than an hour, and I'm like, I can feel this openness. I can feel this relaxation. Like, that idea of my inner critic as a protector, as this armored up thing that maybe could just like take off the heavy armor and come color with me. And film, I also, I'm loving that separation between childish and childlike, right? That, childish is immature, unformed, and limited. Childlike is eternal and magical and brilliant and creative. I notice all the time in the grocery stores, mostly where I see other people's children. And I noticed that right up until, I don't know, like 5, 6, like a child will make full on eye contact with you. They'll just they're just looking at you. And we don't mind being looked at by a child because we're pretty sure we're not being judged, right? And then we get that thing of, like I was talking about with Jason, with my first boyfriend, of that like feeling seen, we love it, a baby or a toddler, locks eyes with you and you're like, hi, hi, right? So to understand that if bringing that open-eyedness, bringing that willingness to see without criticism, without judgment, and which just means not without discernment, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want to go blundering into scenarios that are dangerous for us. We don't want to ignore inappropriate behavior. We don't want to not get angry when it's appropriate to get angry. That's not what we're saying. But to keep that open-eyed quality. So again, you can really be participating in the world and not be all locked down.
Exactly. And I love that you say that, because it's not about throwing out the discernment. You actually become more skillful in your discernment because your discernment isn't powered by the shame and the fear of rejection and the neurosis and the stories that have been running you. It's actually you're actually more clear in the moment of, shall I open and be spontaneous and playful? Or actually this doesn't quite feel right, so I'm just gonna let this play out. You're totally present and available in the moment and working with it, but working with what's actually here instead of these old burdens.
Or that need to be approved of and loved, like when that stops driving the car, when that we I actually don't need to seek approval and love right now. I can just...
Right, which is why the people who are most driven to seek love and approval are pathologically end up in the most dysfunctional and abusive relationships.
Say that again.
The people who are most driven for love and approval without discernment are the ones who end up in the most dysfunctional, dangerous relationships.
And somebody said this on the Facebook page too. Similarly, in your professional life, when you are seeking love and approval from your clients, right? And so you're not charging enough and you're over delivering and you're doing all that crazy, stupid behavior, right? You're going to end up in dysfunctional relationships with your clients. When you can approach your clients with love and a fair price, like you end up attracting much better, smarter, cooler people who really value what you're doing and are happy to pay you and happy to refer you and don't give you tons of problems.
Exactly. Oh my God, my body is like shaking right now. I'm feeling the energy of everyone's protective parts just waking up right now.
I know. I love this. Karen says, I used to be so confident and believed I could do anything I set my mind to, and I did it. Somewhere in my adulthood that changed, and nothing has really worked out since. Right, and it's just this little shift, Karen. It's just, you can absolutely have that confidence and that clarity back, 100%. Lavalos, I think that's probably their email name. There's an added shame when we demonize those parts of ourselves. Really right on, Leonore. That's exactly what I'd wanted to explore with all of you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Angela says, what happens if I let my inner critic take a nap and color? I love this image. Thank you. Barbara says, I want to cry listening to how our inner critic protects us. Crystal says, I have cried. Had to get my posh puffs. I laughed. I feel hopeful. Hey, posh puffs. Angela says, I'm so drawn to toddlers for those images, that energy of openness and hope. Yeah. Something I realized is,
and that's so much of what we see in spiritual, in a lot of spiritual masters too, actually is that energy of openness and hope, right? That's like childlike, it's free and unexpressed because we don't judge it. It just flows. And that's so much of what genuine healing brings back to us, I think.
Yeah. So my inner critic tells me to be quiet so the other people will not think I'm weird or crazy. Right. So if that part relaxed, right? So I get these images. There's some parties saying like, we don't want everybody to think you're weird and crazy. So shh. Right?
Yeah. And Karen, I see that as a wise protector that, has lived through the witch burns and has lived through being killed and has lived through being institutionalized and all the ways that we've been cast out for being who we are. And this is a really strong protector part of you that you can just acknowledge for its resilience and its power and let it know that you're here with it and that you hear it. But it doesn't need to work that hard.
Elizabeth Smith says, I caught this at the perfect time. Love the idea of shifting from the perception of inner critic to a loving sentinel who serves to protect. Karen says, so true, Sam, about kids seeing us. I have my most meaningful and interesting conversations with the kids at my church, maybe because they aren't judgmental, but also because they really see and hear. That's right. Oh, Margaret, I love this. There's a way I repeat negative scripts at work. I know this is brought in by workplace traumatic events, including being fired and misunderstood. Yep.
Totally.
Yep. Great insight, Margaret. Great insight. Elise says, I really like to create entire projects and then never tell anyone about them. My inner critic really likes to keep me small and quiet, really ready to go beyond this and share more. Yes. Okay. So, y'all, if you can imagine the relief you're getting in just this sort of public conversation in which we're not even really doing the work, we're just talking about what the work looks like. Imagine.
Could look like, yeah.
Yeah, imagine what you can get out of working with Leonore one-on-one around this issue. I think you can expect to make huge leaps and bounds in a very short amount of time, and she's made a very special offer. So fill out the application. Don't worry about the offer yet. Just fill out the application because you want to, if nothing else, have the evidence for yourself about some of this work and see your own thoughts on paper. But then you'll also get an invitation to just book a time to talk with her. If it feels right, then great. And if it doesn't, then fine. We don't care, but we care. And I mean, can you imagine if everybody on this call, what do we have? We had a couple hundred people sign up for it. We've got about 40, 50 people on live. We'll probably have another 100 or so watch the replay. If just these couple hundred people got 10% more free of their inner critic, just 10%, if their inner sentinel got more free,
right?
What could happen?
Liberation.
what could happen in the world?
Actual healing and connection.
How much work could it get out there? I feel like I'm hearing the songs and seeing the paintings and the photographs and like if you guys took all that work that you've been hiding in a closet and let it out of the house so that I could see it, so that I could be delighted by it, so I could be moved by it. And then I could share more and Leonore could share more. Oh my gosh. I love that. Because you guys are fine. You really are. You're doing great. You do great work. You're so functional. I know some of you feel like you're a mess, but you're not. You're doing a great job with your life. You know, people love you and they love your work and they love what you're about. You have friends. You have fruitful relationships. You're here. You give a shit. You know, you're trying new things. You're not that far away from everything you want. I promise you, you're not. And I don't mean that in some like airy-fairy, make a post-it and put it on the mirror kind of way. I mean for real. You can really have a life that feels relaxed, that feels creatively fulfilled, that does not feel overwhelmed and stressed and panicked and scarce, you know, tight. But instead have a life that's really full and rich and like you can absolutely have it. You're this far away from it. And I really think that this transformational work around inner critic with Leonore is what can get you there. Crystal says she feels like she's got the 10% during this call. Yeah. Good.
Love it.
So Sydney says the visual of the 4-year-old driving the sports car is so true. Yeah, that's what it's like, man. It's like we just give that toddler control and go nuts. Good.
It's not fun for the 4-year-old either.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good. So does anybody have any questions or anything that is sort of on your mind or anything, you know, we don't want to go into any actual coaching here because it's kind of a public environment and the work Leonore does is kind of delicate and intimate. It's really designed to be done one-on-one. But if you have questions or things that are sort of on your mind right now, we're happy to answer them. Otherwise,
you guys are so great. I love all the feedback. Oh my God, your comments throughout this have been amazing. So
they're so articulate and so insightful, right? I mean,
yeah. Crystal says, my inner critic has been trying to solve other people's problems that were never ours to fix. I can give them back and fix myself.
Oh. Right.
So much dysfunction in the world happens because on a core level, we're trying to solve things that we can't control and that we're actually not responsible for. That's not in our power to resolve. And just realizing that and finding that parts of ourselves that like reaches for the responsibility and like letting it know it actually doesn't have to do that.
And reassigning like so now that part, like you said, you can give them back and fix yourself. Like now this
right.
sentinel, this strong, you know, protector that's been trying to deal with everybody else's stuff now finally gets the job of just you.
Right. Of doing something it actually can succeed at. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I wanted to mention that, that it's not about making these parts of us go away. And sometimes when we start to look at them, these parts, like especially something like the inner critic, which has been so reviled for its job, it feels like it is its job. And it's like, it almost, sometimes it doesn't want to relax because if it relaxes, then it's not good. It doesn't know what to do. And that anxiety is really scary. So that actually becomes a self-perpetuating loop that makes it hard to step away from. But the thing is, we're not getting rid of these parts. We're not kicking them out. We're not making them go away. We're not firing them. We're actually helping them relax and inviting them to do something that they actually would want to do instead.
I remember years ago I was getting coached and I was having a lot of problem with comparison and judgment and jealousy. Like a lot of my friends were doing really well. as actors, and I was doing well too. I just didn't feel like I was doing as well as they were. And so I had this part that was like just keeping score all the time. Like there was this part of me that was just constantly tallying, who's done what to whom and when and why and what did they do and what did I do and blah, blah. And when I finally got inside that a little bit and greeted that part with some more love and some more understanding, it was like she got promoted to be an angel of appreciation. Like that judgment part got promoted and got a better job. All of a sudden transformed into this, like, look at how much success there is. Look at the friend whom you love and admire doing so well. Isn't that wonderful? And I could genuinely feel wonderfully happy for my friends because I knew through that part that had gotten some enlightenment, like they didn't get my success, they got theirs. I wasn't getting less because they got more or different, right? And it was a small but permanent shift. I have not, maybe I've had a few flashes of jealousy since then, but like, maybe a few, but hardly. It's so rare. It's so rare for me. Like I genuinely just don't feel that way anymore. I feel that. I've
seen you do that. I've really seen you do that. Yeah. And it's amazing how it changes the relationship when, because so often we are having the shitty, like the judgment and comparison and the pettiness, but we're just not talking about it. But you know what? The other person knows, right? Like, when that's playing out secretly in the relationship. And I think another piece of this is that it actually helps us be so much better in relationships. As I said earlier, like the people who are most driven by the need for love and approval are the ones who end up in the most dysfunctional relationships. But, and paradoxically, the more desperate we are to connect, to feel connected, often the more caught up we get in our own neurosis that keep us in our heads and prevent us from having true intimacy with other people. So in a way, the more at peace you are with these parts of yourself, the more genuine you can be in relationships.
I love this. Good. Well, we're getting a lot of comments of appreciation and relating and like thumbs up. Oh, Nessa's here. Joe Nagel's here. Hi, Joe. My cousin Meg. Hi, Meg. Yeah, this has been really beautiful, you guys. I'm so impressed by your insights and your willingness to sort of come on this journey with us and really start to feel what that transformation would be like, going from that trapped, small, perfectionist, running the same pattern, same pattern, different outfit, same pattern, different outfit, over and over again. And instead imagining a world in which you are open and relaxed and creative and loving and love-filled and willing. I was thinking this morning, I don't think anybody wants to get to the end of their life and go, I did it. I made it 97 years with no one criticizing me. Right? I lived to 125 and never did anything risky. I lived my whole life and never risked the judgment of others. Like, that's not really.
Yeah, so I'm inviting you. Yeah, we're inviting you to wake up from that. We're inviting you to wake up from that trance of avoidance and the trance of mediocrity and the trance of self-doubt. Like, there is so much freshness and beauty and brilliance in the world beyond that. And it doesn't have to. And I really invite you to come closer and have a conversation about working with me. If this just feels like it's time, if you're really ready to stop having that same experience over and over, and especially if you don't, on a deep level, really believe it can change. Because I know a lot of you have been through a lot of workshops, done a lot of self-development work, and you're still stuck on this. And it's just that you're trying to use the wrong tool. You're just trying to do the wrong tool.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh, you guys are having such great insights. Cynthia says, thank you, both of you, for putting your work out there. I've gotten clear about my next steps on this call. The energy of this work is a very amazing vibration. Seriously. Leonore's like this all the time, by the way. She just wakes up. Katrina says, The story about being jealous and not acknowledging what you yourself had already accomplished just hit me. I just realized that I see the amazing things other people are doing and have done, and I haven't stopped to look at what I have already done or what I know I am capable of. Thank you for all this.
Mm.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. I have some ideas of what could help you with that. Because I do that a lot too. I'd love to share with you what has helped those parts of me be able to appreciate and take stock of that. I've got some good strategies.
Yeah, good. Love, love, love. All right, so fill out this application to work with Leonore, even if you know you don't want to do it. Even especially if you feel like you don't want to do it. Actually, you should do it. And then if you're moved to, have a conversation with her and see what happens. I'm just typing into the Facebook, fill out application here.
Rachel is saying address. She feels like if the inner critic stops, everything else will stop and I won't actually have the motivation to do or achieve anything.
Oh, yeah, that's...
yeah, so what I want to reflect back to you is that all I hear is that you're just really, really blended with this part of you, and that it would help you to understand how much it's a part of you, but it's not the totality of who you are. Because that's the experience of this part, is that if it stops, then you won't have the energy to do anything. But there are actually other parts of you that know that that's not true, and other parts that have other strategies and a lot of resilience. And just working with that protector will help it so much to relax, because it sounds like it's having a pretty miserable job. So what if you just offered a little bit of appreciation for how hard it's working? And that it feels like it can't stop, because that's a pretty sad position to be in, Yeah. So I hope you all take these ideas and go do something lovely for your protectors and ask them what they want to do. Go for a walk, color, Japanese tea ceremony, sit under a tree, nap, hot bath. Yeah.
Something easy. Yeah. Beautiful. Leonore, thank you so much for coming up with this idea and this curriculum and sharing this with everybody. I think it's really so important. And I listen to a lot of other people's webinars because I am a lifelong learner, like a lot of the people in this community. I'm interested in what other people are teaching. And I often find myself disappointed because I find that a lot of other people's webinars are just really surface. And it's one of the things I know and love about you is that you're not very interested in staying on the surface of anything. You like to go deep.
No, I'm pathologically driven to the depths.
I don't think it's pathological. I think it's lovely. I think part of the reason people do that in webinars, I think partly they're scared, but I also think they sort of have a belief like, oh, people can't go deep in this short of a time, or if they're not paying for it, or if they're not in a structured thing, they're not going to go for it. But I think our community here demonstrates what total bullshit that is, because you guys went right there, and opened right up.
Oh,
and
so beautiful.
So beautiful. We can't do what we do without you doing what you do. So thank you all for your energy and your commitment and your honesty, your deep, deep honesty with yourself and with us. And we would love to work with you more on this. So let's do one more breath to close out this circle. Leonore, do you have anything you want to say to everybody before we close?
I just thank you so much. I'm really acknowledging the power of your protectors that have driven you to be on this call, and that their voice is actually what pulled you to this today. So I'm hoping that each of us finds some relief and perspective and gratitude and appreciation for these parts of us, and I'm bowing to them.
Oh, I love this. I just got that image of that same like coat of armor person being like, psst, go on the webinar. Psst.
Yeah.
I'd like to
you need this.
So dear.
So
That's really beautiful. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Let's do one more breath. You ready? Let's inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for doing this with us.
Bye.